It's obviously been a while since the documentary of Quiet on Set came out, and finally, Ariana Grande has broken her silence about it and her experience being one of the child actors on Nickelodeon. And her solution to all of these problems is send the child actors to therapy. Mandatory therapy for everybody.
Hollywood
Couldn't possibly be that the solution is firing the creeps. Just send the actors to therapy after they've already been, creeped on. And that's her genius solution for all of this. But this was on an appearance on Penn Badgley's Podcrushed podcast. He just gets all of his actor friends to do this out of pity, I think.
The therapy industrial complex,
Ariana Grande is funding it.
Seizes every opportunity it can.
She's big pharma. Yeah.
Big therapy.
Let's look at a couple of these clips first.
Hold on. Let me pull it up here. The one directly from the TMZ article?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go, guys.
What are your thoughts on child acting? We've had different child actors on the show who feel differently. Some who are like, I would never let my kids. I don't think anyone should. And others who are open to it as long as there's certain conditions on set.
Obviously, my relationship to it has and is currently and has been changing. And I'm reprocessing a lot of what the experience was like. I think that the environment needs to be made safer if kids are going to be acting. And I think there should be therapists. I think there should be parents allowed to be wherever they want to be.
I thought that was already true.
It's already a law. Yeah.
And I think not only on kids' sets, I think if anyone wants to do this or music or anything at the level of exposure that it means to be on TV or to do music with a major label or whatever, there should be in the contract something about therapy is mandatory twice a week. A lot of people don't.
Like that, the scary thing about that is what that does is it presupposes that bad things are going to happen.
Of course. Yeah.
That's crazy.
There's more stigma around a 10-year-old working at a coffee shop than being on a television show.
Do you remember
which
that
is
story?
insane.
Do you remember that story from a couple of last year? The kid who was working at the fast food restaurant, he was working at Burger King, and everybody was talking about how it was child labor.
Yeah.
Because he was a 14-year-old with a job.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Turned into a big controversy.
Have you guys heard about Abigail Schreier's book that talks about how basically a lot of society's woes is because of therapy? Because one of the symptoms of insanity is rumination, constantly thinking about your issues.
Yeah.
And there's mostly young women that are paying to go multiple times a week constantly to just think about all the bad things that happen to them.
Yeah.
It's all minor shit.
And we live in a society now where it's safe enough and your schedule is secure enough that you have the time to do that. Whereas back, in the days of yore, you had to just work to survive and you didn't have the free time to just sit there and ruminate on everything that happened to you.
Well, that goes for normal people.
Exactly.
For child actors, I genuinely believe that what they're going through is traumatizing, regardless of whether something criminal happens to them. And I think society has just decided this is a trade-off that they're willing to make for entertainment.
They're like, look, how am I supposed to watch my movies with kids in them, with parents, if the kids aren't going to have to go through this horrific experience and people can't?
There was another video in the same article, if we could play that one, where she is desperately trying not to mention Dan Schneider's name. And it just doesn't address anything that happened with her particular experience.
This guy's got a pull, huh? Because no one ever says anything about him.
Yeah, it's weird.
Memories, and we feel so privileged to have been able to create those roles and be a part of something that was so special for a lot of young kids. I think we're reprocessing our relationship to it a little bit now. Speaking specifically about our show, I think that was something that we were convinced was the cool thing about us, is that we pushed the envelope with our humor, and the innuendos were we were told and convinced as well that it was the cool differentiation. And I don't know, I think it just all happened so quickly, and now looking back on some of the clips, I'm like, that's damn, like really?
Yeah.
And
oh
the
shit! Like
craziest,
if my daughter, you know, sorry to,
no.
you know, I just you think about it. It's like if I had a daughter,
Yeah.
it's like and
The
Where's she
craziest part
from?
of that is like how many people have to approve it. Like when you start working in
so
television,
many adults,
How many adults?
so many
45
adults.
adults at
no,
least.
so
So
many
many
adults
adults.
approved that. So that's it's like there's no spirit of responsibility towards children.
Right.
There's a spirit of like a bottom line, a
There
financial
is a bottom line.
You know,
There's a bottom line, and then the things that weren't approved for the network were snuck onto like our website or whatever it was, and that is another discovery. But
Wow.
going into it, I guess I'm upset.
So she's referring to a lot of these sexual innuendos, which were written into these scripts by oftentimes Dan Schneider himself. And a lot of them were pretty blatant. I found a clip of the ones that Ariana Grande was specifically involved in, where she's sucking her toes. She's
I'll never like
pouring water on her chest.
I knew nothing of any of this stuff, and then like it was like Sarah showed it to me, and I was like, "The stuff was on TV. That's insane."
Let's pull that up.
All right.
Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out.
Bro, feed people are weird.
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato. Is it
What you should know is that if you're looking at the camera here, there's an entire room of adults
On the other side.
on the other side of this camera right now. So when that person says it took 45 people, this went through 45 people, it actually went through more, because it went through 45 people at the corporate level, or 45 people at the script and writing level, you know, executive producers, showrunners, writers, and all that stuff, script editors, all of this stuff, right? But it's not just that, it's the people on set as well.
And that's what I said about the Balenciaga stuff back then as well. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know about it." It's like, yeah, you did.
Yeah.
100% you
possible
did.
for a teenage girl to drink water upside down?
Oh my God, come on. Come on, dude.
Are these shows still appearing?
Possible.
Okay. All right.
Well, okay, so Ariana Grande, she was referring to the more risque innuendo humor that they relegated to their website instead of playing it on their TV shows, and those were those clips
Yeah.
that were
How old
on the
is she there?
Nickelodeon website. I think
14?
she started out on Victorious at 17.
Oh,
So
okay.
she was an adult by the time it ended, but I don't think she was at the beginning. Regardless, obviously it's all intentional, and we found that out. I mean, if you didn't know already, it's obviously it went through so many people that should have said like, hey, maybe this isn't a good idea. But they were afraid of what? Like Dan Schneider yelling at them?
Scary.
Or losing their jobs.
Very scary.
They still are.
So it's a very blatant trade-off of like money versus morals that went down at Nickelodeon and all of these different
And
studios.
to them, the answer to all of this is just dump the kids in therapy.
She goes to therapy and she's like, they made me squeeze juice out of a potato.
How does that make you feel?
Well, it made me feel bad.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing is like
Let's explore that.
she was 17, but the audience was even younger.
Of course, and that's really the problem
Yes.
is the reason that Dan Schneider inserted those jokes in those shows was not for adults to laugh at. It was to plant these ideas into the brains of children because he is a sexual deviant. He's clearly, I mean, they talked about this in the docuseries that he would play porn in script rooms with all of these employees. He was clearly a porn-addled, weird pervert who was obsessed with these things.
Yeah.
And nobody really tried to stop it. In fact, they probably thought it was funny, and they're telling a different story now.
Yeah.
And I just find it interesting, like you said, Dane, that nobody is willing to name this guy. When they're doing
Still.
these interviews and they're breaking their silence,
There was
nobody
one-
is willing to say what the documentary was even about.
There was one lady, and she was the one that didn't show her face. She was the only one that mentioned him, and she didn't show her face.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of these people who worked with him must be really afraid of him to this day for whatever reason.
I don't know if me and my wife are too Hispanic, but we immediately picked up on it. I was like, funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, is it some kind of blackmail operation a la Epstein, but on a lower level?
Contracts? Could this have to do with non-disclosure agreements?
They must have all been expired by now. And if it has anything to do with criminal behavior,
but we're not. But this
you're
is
allowed to say.
But what we're
whatever
talking
you
about
want.
right now is crap that's just gross and in bad taste,
Yeah.
but not necessarily rising to the level of criminality.
I think she is probably afraid of legal action because Dan Schneider is still in the process of suing the producers of Quiet on Set for defamation. And I don't know if that's really going to go anywhere, but he had to for public appearances at least.
Yeah.
To claim that it was defamation.
And what's interesting is she mentioned therapy. That's very common now. There have been more than a few stories we've talked about where they're now just having on-set therapists for actors, which is something that I actually believe Hollywood would have made jokes about 10 years ago or 20 years ago about the needy nature of actors. But for children, it's not about the children being needy. It's about not exposing them to things that require them to go to therapy to begin with.
Yeah, that would be the real solution, wouldn't
Shock!
Imagine a world where we don't traumatize children. I know. Hold on.
it? It would be great if that were possible. But it's not even just what's in the scripts. It's not even just what they have to do on camera. It's the whole nature of the beast that they're being thrust into the public eye, usually because they're supporting their entire family financially, which is just a stress that no child can really handle.
And it's a toxic situation for them to begin with.
Yeah, and then the add on top of that, the fact that there are plenty of predators roaming around Hollywood to this day, and people act like it's a problem that was already solved.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what a lot of people believe, right? Is that Weinstein, being the evil scumbag that he was, ended up just being the evil scumbag that took the fall for all the other evil scumbags that already exist.
Exactly.
So it's not going to change. It's not going to get any better with these things, at least not in any meaningful way. Not that I can see. The culture around it won't change.
Have you guys talked about him? Because apparently he's going to get let go of a bunch of charges.
Weinstein is never going to get out of prison because he's currently serving a sentence for his charges from New York.
Yes, he's got convictions in multiple states.
It's the LA convictions that are being appealed, I think. But it's regardless of what happens, he's going to die in prison.
Well.
That's pretty much guaranteed.
So
regardless, though, he was kind of the sacrificial lamb of the Me Too movement. And I always said that the Me Too movement, in a way, didn't go far enough because nobody started talking about the people in Hollywood predating upon children. They were just talking about how a bunch of whiny actresses decided to go to Harvey's hotel room to get a role, and maybe that gamble didn't work out well for them.
yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.